The three suns of Nexus 7 cast their purple-tinted light across the sprawling military compound, creating long shadows that danced across the crystalline training grounds. Drill Sergeant Kraz Tix stood at attention, his four arms crossed behind his back in perfect military posture, while his secondary eyes scanned the latest batch of recruitment files. His primary eyes remained fixed on the obstacle course that had broken countless cadets over his 15-cycle career. "Computer, display Sergeant Kraz Tix's service record," he commanded, his mandibles clicking with pride. The holographic display shimmered to life, showcasing numbers that made even the toughest Rigelian warriors tremble. 327 training cycles. 0 failures. 15,642 graduates. All of them taking exactly one standard week to complete his elite combat readiness course. Kraz Tix's exoskeleton gleamed under the alien suns as he performed his morning inspection of the course. The anti-gravity chambers hummed with deadly precision. The plasma barriers crackled with enough energy to vaporize a small transport vessel. The neural challenge maze glowed with its signature orange warning lights, ready to scramble the synapses of any cadet who dared approach it without proper preparation. Sergeant called out Lieutenant Commander Pax Thor, approaching with their characteristic six-legged stride. "The new cadets have arrived, including the Deathworlder." The last word came out as almost a whisper, as if speaking it too loudly might summon some terrible force. Kraz Tix's mandibles twitched in amusement. "Ah, yes, the human. They always send us one or two each cycle, thinking their high-gravity evolution gives them an advantage. They all learn the same lesson. My course requires more than just brute strength and stubborn determination." The lieutenant commander's sensory stalks wavered uncertainly. "This one's different, Sergeant. Their psychological profile is unusual." "They're all unusual, Pax Thor. That's why we maintain the 1-week standard. 7 days to break them down and build them back up. 7 days to teach them that true combat readiness comes from discipline, not just their precious Deathworld adaptations." A gentle breeze carried the scent of mineral polish and weapons-grade plasma across the training grounds. In the distance, maintenance drones buzzed around the quantum phase shifters, ensuring every deadly challenge remained perfectly calibrated. This course had been designed by the finest military minds in the Galactic Alliance, each obstacle carefully crafted to push cadets to their absolute limits. The Elite Combat Readiness course stands as the pinnacle of military training in 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Kraz Tix announced proudly, reciting the words he had spoken at the beginning of every training cycle. 1 week of carefully structured challenges, each building upon the last. 1 week to prove they're worthy of serving in the Allied forces. Little did Sergeant Kraz Tix know that his perfect record, his carefully maintained schedule, and his very understanding of what was possible were about to be shattered. And it would take less than a day for it all to come crumbling down around his armored carapace. The assembled cadets stood in formation, their various appendages, tentacles, and limbs arranged in what each species considered a position of respect. Sergeant Kraz Tix paced before them, his footsteps echoing across the crystalline parade ground. That's when he saw her. Alexandra Rodriguez stood in the back row, her dark hair pulled into a tight regulation bun, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She was shorter than most of the other cadets, barely reaching the thorax of the Centaurian cadet next to her. But something about her stance made Kraz Tix's antennae twitch nervously. "Designation and planet of origin," he barked, stopping in front of her. "Cadet Alexandra Rodriguez, Earth, sir." "But my friends call me Steel," she responded, her voice carrying an undertone of barely contained enthusiasm that made several nearby cadets' sensory organs retract in alarm. "I am not your friend, Cadet Rodriguez." Kraz Tix clicked his mandibles dismissively. "And this is not some backwater Deathworld training camp where you get to have nicknames." The human's smile didn't waver. "Of course, Sergeant. Though I should mention that Earth's gravity is actually 3.2 times stronger than this facility's current setting. Would you like me to demonstrate the practical implications?" Several of the alien instructors exchanged worried glances. Lieutenant Vex N.A., a veteran of countless training cycles, unconsciously took 2 steps backward. The Arcturian twins in the front row began emitting distress pheromones. Cadet Rodriguez, Kraz Tix's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Perhaps you'd like to enlighten us about your previous military experience." "Certainly, Sergeant. I was the youngest person to complete the Mars Colony Marathon. You know, the one where we run 42 kilometers in a pressure suit through the Valles Marineris Canyon? Also held the record for speed climbing Olympus Mons, though that was just a hobby. The other cadets began whispering amongst themselves. A Proximan cadet fainted, their crystalline form tinkling as they hit the ground. Nobody moved to help them up. Silence, Kraz Tix roared, all four of his arms gesticulating wildly. This is the elite combat readiness course, not some primitive endurance contest. You will face challenges that will test your mind, body, and spirit in ways your Deathworld could never prepare you for. Rodriguez nodded earnestly. Oh, like the quantum phase shifters? I noticed they're running on the Mark IV calibration sequence. Those are fun. We used something similar in my high school physics lab. The color drained from Lieutenant Commander Pax Thor's face scales. Nobody was supposed to be able to identify the quantum phase shifters from this distance, let alone their calibration sequence. The course begins at dawn tomorrow, Kraz Tix announced, trying to regain control of the situation. 7 days of increasingly difficult challenges. Many of you will fail. Some of you may quit. But those who survive, he paused for dramatic effect, only to notice Rodriguez checking what appeared to be an antique mechanical timepiece on her wrist. Question. Sergeant, she raised her hand, bouncing slightly on the balls of her feet. Are we allowed to complete multiple challenges simultaneously? And is there a minimum time requirement between sections? Only asking because I have a dinner date scheduled for tomorrow evening, and I'd hate to have to reschedule. The assembled alien cadets gasped in unison. Even the recovered Proximan cadet managed to faint again. Dismissed, Kraz Tix shrieked, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. As the cadets dispersed, he watched Rodriguez practically skip away, humming something that sounded suspiciously like an ancient Earth battle hymn. Lieutenant, he turned to Vex NA, his voice quavering slightly. Contact Central Command. Tell them we may need to adjust our traditional timeline. In the distance, Rodriguez could be seen doing one-armed push-ups while simultaneously solving a portable quantum entropy puzzle, much to the horror of the watching maintenance drones. Dawn broke over the training facility like a cracking egg, spilling purple and orange light across the assembled crowd. Sergeant Kraz Tix stood before the first obstacle, his carapace polished to a mirror shine, ready to witness another perfectly orchestrated week of training. The first challenge, he announced to the gathered cadets, is the maze of neural destruction. Its pathways randomly reconfigure every 30 seconds, while psychic barriers test your mental fortitude. The current record for completion is 6 hours. Alexandra Rodriguez raised her hand. Quick question, Sergeant. Those neural patterns look like they're based on the standard galactic algorithm for quantum consciousness, right? That's classified information, Cadet Kraz Tix snapped. But since you asked, yes, the maze uses the most advanced. Oh, great, Rodriguez interrupted, pulling out what appeared to be a primitive paper notebook. So it's just like that logic puzzle we used to play back home. You know, the one where you have to get the chicken, fox, and grain across the river. Except this is in 4 dimensions with quantum uncertainty principles. Before Kraz Tix could respond, Rodriguez sprinted into the maze. The other cadets watched in horror as she began humming, skipping, and occasionally stopping to scribble equations in her notebook. The maze's walls shifted and warped, trying desperately to confuse her path. Impossible, Lieutenant Vex NA whispered, all 3 of their hearts pounding. She's mapping the quantum fluctuations in real time using, is that a pencil? 3 minutes later, Rodriguez emerged from the exit, her hair slightly ruffled, but wearing the same cheerful smile. That was fun. The part where you added the 5th dimensional twist near the end was really clever. Though you might want to check Junction 7, the entropy levels seemed a bit off. Kraz Tix's mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. The plasma barrier gauntlet is next, he announced, his voice slightly higher than usual. Superheated plasma streams cross in random patterns while gravity shifts unpredictably. Most cadets require at least 12 hours to. Rodriguez was already running toward it. The other instructors watched in mounting panic as she treated the deadly plasma streams like some sort of Deathworld dance party, sliding under one blast, backflipping over another, all while appearing to take notes on the plasma modulation patterns. Is she correcting our safety protocols? Lieutenant Commander Pax Thor asked in disbelief, watching Rodriguez pause to adjust a control panel with one hand while casually ducking under a plasma stream with the other. Next up, The anti-gravity combat chamber, Kraz Tix practically screamed, his professional composure cracking. You must defeat 50 combat drones while dealing with randomly shifting gravity fields. Oh cool, Rodriguez grinned, already strapping on her combat gear. This is just like that zero-G laser tag place we had at my cousin's birthday party. Except your drones are using Mark III targeting systems instead of infrared. The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as Rodriguez treated the deadly combat chamber like a playground. She used the gravity shifts to launch herself at impossible angles, took out multiple drones with perfectly calculated ricochets, and somehow managed to rewire 2 of the drones to fight on her side. 4 minutes and 23 seconds Vex NA announced weakly. She just broke the previous record by. I can't calculate numbers that high right now, Pax Thor admitted, slumping against a wall. The quantum phase shifter challenge was next, a test that usually required complex calculations and careful energy management. Rodriguez treated it like a game of hopscotch, skipping between quantum states while simultaneously explaining to a nearby maintenance drone how to optimize its energy consumption. The psychic endurance test, Kraz Tix declared, a note of desperation in his voice. No human has ever completed this without at least 3 days of preparation. Oh right, the Mindscape navigation thing, Rodriguez nodded, already settling into the testing chamber. Quick question, are we allowed to use meditation techniques? Because I learned this really cool method from a Buddhist monk who was also a quantum physicist. 15 minutes later, she emerged from the chamber smiling. The alien psychic evaluator followed shortly after, submitted their resignation, and immediately booked passage to a distant monastery. Is that everything for the first section? Rodriguez asked, checking her antique watch. Because I noticed the advanced combat scenarios through that door, and they look pretty interesting. Especially that thing with the temporal paradox generators. Mind if I knock those out before lunch? Kraz Tix stared at his checklist, then at Rodriguez, then back at his checklist. Several of his auxiliary breathing tubes had completely shut down from stress. Lieutenant, he whispered to Vex NA, contact the Galactic Military Academy. Tell them we need to completely redesign the entire concept of combat training, and possibly reality itself. In the background, Rodriguez had already started on the advanced courses, cheerfully explaining basic temporal mechanics to a group of confused maintenance drones while simultaneously dodging energy beams in 6 different time streams. By mid-morning. The training facility had descended into complete chaos. The observation deck was packed with wide-eyed alien cadets, pressing their various sensory organs against the viewing screens to watch Rodriguez tear through challenges that usually took days to complete. She just cleared the molecular reassembly chamber in 3 minutes, shrieked an Andromedan cadet, their tentacles twisted into stress knots. 3 minutes. I spent 2 days in there learning how to put my own particles back together. Lieutenant Vex NA was huddled in a corner, rocking back and forth while clutching their performance metrics tablet. The graphs. The beautiful, predictable graphs. They're all broken now. How do you score something that's supposed to take a week when it's done in less time than a standard lunch break? Rodriguez's voice crackled over the facility's comm system. Hey Sergeant, quick question about the quantum entanglement puzzle chamber. Is it okay if I adjust the particle spin matrices? I think I can get about 15% better efficiency if we tweak the baseline resonance. Sergeant Kraz Tix, who had been stress molting for the past hour, barely managed to respond. The matrices are precisely calibrated by the galaxy's finest quantum engineers too. Never mind, already done, Rodriguez chirped. Anyone want to see how to solve a 12-dimensional logic puzzle using just a rubber band and basic topology principles? I learned this neat trick from my grandmother. The other cadets watched in amazement as Rodriguez bounced between challenge rooms, often completing multiple tests simultaneously. She cleared the temporal paradox chamber while teaching a maintenance drone how to juggle, solve the hyperspace navigation simulator while doing one-handed push-ups. And somehow managed to improve the efficiency of the facility's cafeteria replication systems during her scheduled 3-minute water break. Update from Medical Lieutenant Commander Pax Thor announced, their voice trembling. 3 more instructors have requested immediate psychiatric leave. The Advanced Mathematics Department has barricaded themselves in their office and are demanding we rewrite the laws of physics. A junior instructor burst into the observation deck, their exoskeleton pale with shock. She's in the multi-dimensional combat arena. She's using the temporal displacement field too. 2. To what Kraz Tix demanded, dreading the answer. To practice dance moves between combat sequences. She says it's helping her, and I quote, visualize the quantum probability matrices in a more intuitive way. Through the viewing screen, they watched as Rodriguez gracefully waltzed through a barrage of plasma fire, casually disarming combat drones with one hand while solving complex mathematical equations with the other. She had somehow jury-rigged her standard-issue combat helmet to play what she called old Earth training music. "Is that Staying Alive by the Bee Gees?" asked a confused Rigelian cadet. The beat helps with timing the quantum fluctuations, Rodriguez explained over the comm, executing a perfect spin between dimension shifts. Plus, it's got a great rhythm for calculating hyperspatial trajectories. Kraz Tix watched in mounting horror as his prized training course, designed to humble the galaxy's most promising warriors, was being treated like an elaborate playground. Rodriguez had even started giving impromptu lectures to the maintenance drones, who had formed what they called a study group in the corner of the combat arena. "She's not just completing the challenges," Vex NA whispered in awe. "She's optimizing them, improving them, teaching others how to do them better. This is beyond anything our protocols are designed to handle." "Time check," Rodriguez's cheerful voice echoed through the facility. "I think I've got about 20 minutes before I need to start getting ready for that dinner date. Anyone mind if I tackle the advanced xenobiology trials while finishing up the last few combat scenarios? I've got some really interesting theories about cross-dimensional cellular adaptation that I'd love to test out." The sound of Sergeant Kraz Tix's remaining professional composure shattering echoed throughout the facility, accompanied by the upbeat disco music still playing from Rodriguez's modified combat helmet. The Omega Chamber loomed before them, its obsidian walls crackling with exotic energies. This was it. The final challenge. The one that had reduced battle-hardened veterans to quivering masses of protoplasm. The challenge that typically took 3 days of meditation just to attempt. Sergeant Kraz Tix had stopped molting, if only because he had run out of exoskeleton to shed. "The ultimate combat resolution chamber combines everything you've learned," he announced, his voice hollow. "Time dilation, quantum mechanics, psychic barriers, and multi-dimensional combat. No one has ever completed it in less than 36 hours. Rodriguez peered through the entrance, her eyes lighting up like a child in a candy store. "Oh wow, you've got a Type 7 reality manipulator in there. And is that a proto-conscious AI matrix? This is amazing. The chamber will test your ability to process multiple timeline variations while engaging in combat across 7 dimensions," Lieutenant Vexnay explained weakly. "You must maintain quantum coherence while simultaneously resolving temporal paradoxes and establishing psychic dominance over the AI matrix." Rodriguez finished, already stretching. "Quick question. Are we allowed to use the quantum uncertainty principle to create temporary parallel processing nodes? Because I have this theory about using Heisenberg's uncertainty as a computational advantage." The assembled instructors exchanged terrified glances. "That's not even theoretically possible," Pax Thor stammered. "Oh right, sorry, sometimes I forget what year it is. Never mind, I'll stick to standard 4-dimensional quantum computing." Rodriguez grinned, pulling her hair into a tighter bun. "Though I might try that thing with the temporal loops that I learned from my great-grandfather before he was born." She stepped into the chamber, the doors sealed with an ominous hiss. The observation screens flickered to life, showing multiple views across various dimensional planes. The alien cadets pressed against the barriers, their various sensory organs straining to witness what they assumed would be at least a day-long challenge. 3 minutes later, alarms started blaring. "She's rewriting the base code of reality," a technician screamed, their tentacles tangled in panic. "She's using the temporal feedback loops to optimize the quantum processing matrix, while simultaneously teaching the AI system how to play something called poker." Through the screens, they watched as Rodriguez danced through dimension-warping combat scenarios, casually discussing philosophy with the AI while dodging chronoplasmic bursts. She had somehow turned the deadly serious combat simulation into what appeared to be an impromptu physics lesson. "You see." Her voice came through the speakers, addressing both the AI and the stunned observers. "If you consider time as more of a suggestion than a rigid framework, you can parallel process across multiple probability streams. I learned this trick from a quantum physics professor I'll meet next Tuesday." 7 minutes in, The AI announced it was taking a sabbatical to study human philosophy. 9 minutes, and Rodriguez had mapped out 17 previously unknown dimensions. At the 12-minute mark, she had drafted a paper on trans-dimensional combat theory that would later win 3 Galactic Science Awards. 13 minutes and 42 seconds after entering the chamber, Rodriguez emerged, straightening her uniform. That was fantastic. Though you might want to check the reality stabilizers on level 3. Also, the AI asked me to pass along their resignation letter. They're planning to start a support group for artificial intelligences dealing with existential crises. Sergeant Kraz Tix had gone completely still, all 4 arms frozen in positions of disbelief. Lieutenant Vex N.A. was quietly sobbing into a tactical manual. The maintenance drones had formed a small fan club and were wearing hastily made Rodriguez appreciation badges. So Rodriguez checked her watch. I've still got about 40 minutes before I need to start getting ready for dinner. Anyone want me to run through it again? I've got some ideas about improving the efficiency of the quantum manifold generators. The sound that escaped Sergeant Kraz Tix's mandibles wasn't so much a word as it was the death rattle of everything he thought he knew about military training, reality, and the limits of possibility. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Military Command was called to order. Though order was a generous term for the chaos unfolding in the conference room. Holograms of high-ranking officials from 17 species flickered anxiously as they reviewed the footage from what was now being called the Rodriguez incident. 1 hour Grand Commander Zex Toll announced, their voice quavering. She completed our most prestigious training course in 1 hour. A course designed to take a full standard week. In the corner, Sergeant Kraz Tix sat wrapped in a shock blanket, occasionally muttering equations and rocking back and forth. Lieutenant Vex N.A. was still trying to process the performance metrics, though the computing system had crashed 3 times attempting to calculate the impossible numbers. That's not even the worst part, Lieutenant Commander Pax Thor added, pulling up another report. She improved every single system she encountered. The quantum processors are 47% more efficient. The combat drones have developed personalities. The cafeteria food actually tastes good now. A message flashed across the conference room screens. It was from the facility's AI system, which had renamed itself Phil and was currently on a meditation retreat in the digital realm, contemplating the meaning of existence through the lens of human cat videos. We must completely revise our understanding of human capabilities, one of the admirals declared. According to Rodriguez's suggestions, our entire training protocol is, and I quote, about as challenging as a human kindergarten obstacle course. The maintenance drones, still wearing their Rodriguez fan club badges, had started a petition to rename the facility the Rodriguez Academy of Advanced Everything. They had already gathered signatures from 3 different dimensions. What about the temporal anomalies she created? Another official asked nervously. The quantum physics department is still trying to understand how she managed to high-five herself from next Tuesday. Before anyone could respond, the door chimed. Alexandra Rodriguez poked her head in, still in her perfectly pressed uniform. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to drop off some notes about potential improvements to the training program. Also, I helped the quantum computer achieve sentience. His name is Bob, and he's really interested in learning juggling. The entire room froze. Several officials' holograms flickered in panic. Oh, and Sergeant Kraz Tix, she added cheerfully. I rewrote the course manual in my spare time. Added some fun exercises that even regular non-Deathworlders can try. You know, for beginners. Kraz Tix made a sound like a quantum processor trying to divide by 0. Well, got to run. Meeting some friends for karaoke. Did you know you can use harmonic resonances from human singing to stabilize quantum fluctuations? Fascinating stuff. After she left, the silence was broken only by the sound of careers imploding and paradigms shifting. The next day, the Galactic Military Command received 17 transfer requests from the training facility's staff. Sergeant Kraz Tix's application simply read, transfer requested to anywhere humans are not, preferably another galaxy or dimension. They also received 1 other application, this one from Rodriguez, requesting a position as a training instructor. Her cover letter suggested several thousand improvements to the entire military structure, 3 new branches of quantum physics, and a better recipe for the cafeteria's mystery meat surprise. The maintenance drones had already started printing Rodriguez Teaching Academy t-shirts. As for the facility's AI system, Phil, it had started a self-help group for artificial intelligences experiencing existential crises after meeting humans. Bob, the quantum computer, was the treasurer. The final entry in Sergeant Kraz Tix's service record, before he departed for a remote meditation colony on the edge of known space, reads simply, "Note to future instructors, when humans say they're looking forward to a challenge, run. Run far, run fast, and never look back. And whatever you do, never ever let them get bored enough to start improving things."